Bullying. It leads to depression, anxiety, loneliness, and even possible suicide. These are all negative impacts which are all linked to bullying. Throughout this documentary, you will learn the reasons why people bully and what you can do to help or to get help. What is bullying technically considered, though? We asked health teacher Mrs. Nolan on her thoughts on this.
Bullying is basically anybody that is saying or doing something that is making that person's self-esteem, how they feel about themselves, it's lowering that. And if by calling somebody gay because you think that they're gay because you have a certain criteria of what you think gay is, that's bullying.
According to statistics in the U.S., 90% of 4th through 8th graders report being bullied. Of that 90%, they experienced bullying because of their looks, body shape, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or if they are disabled. We interviewed people around our school, and 60% have seen bullying. The other 40% haven't, or have only seen it occasionally.
I don't think so. Usually when I see people being bullied, they're just stating phrases or a student's name over and over. In the hallways, I've never seen someone go up to another student and say, I don't like you, you're too fat. I've never heard any of those things.
I don't know if I ever have seen real significant bullying, but there are little things that go on all the time, like saying somebody, drawing attention to somebody repeatedly, which could make someone feel insecure. But of course, there's a lot that goes on that teachers don't see.
Is it possible that our teachers haven't seen bullying because they are academic specials teachers? Meaning that in classes such as health or tech ed, students tend to act more aggressive towards peers than in the average social studies or science classroom? The answer is yes. The 40% that haven't seen it are all mostly academic specials teachers. But our health teacher says otherwise.
You know, working in a middle school, being a middle school teacher, I have definitely seen bullying or even just harassment of other students. Have I seen it in the hallway? Yeah. You know, I definitely have seen students maybe being pushed, or they drop something and somebody kicks their binder because they dropped their binder, or walks by and slams their locker. As a teacher, you're trying to control it a little more, the environment. I've seen it in the classroom where if somebody comes to the front of the board to do something on the front of the board, you might hear a snide remark made about a student or something like that. And, you know, at that point as a teacher, you're trying to shut it all down.
So what we know so far about bullying is that it is a very sly and quick way to get to people emotionally without teachers knowing. This is one of the reasons why it happens so often. Most quote-unquote bullies and even victims don't want the teachers finding out. This is why that 40% haven't seen it. So to break it down, there are 3 different categories of bullying: cyber, physical, and social. Cyberbullying is reported by 25% of middle schoolers being bullied over the internet or in social media. For physical bullying, 25% of middle schoolers report being bullied in this manner. This is kicking, punching, basically hurting people. Lastly, for social bullying, 39% of middle schoolers report being bullied in this manner. This is verbally speaking to a person behind their back or to their face. The most common reason why people get bullied is for being part of the LGBT+ community. The term LGBT means any different sexuality or gender you choose to identify as other than being heterosexual or the gender you were born as. We talked to Auburn, a student who has experienced bullying, and listened to her thoughts on why people do it.
I think that one of the reasons, because that is such a common thing to get bullied over, is because there's such a lack of understanding surrounding it. Schools have only just begun to teach about the LGBTQ community, and there's rarely, if ever, a parent who sits their kid down while doing the talk and also talks about LGBT. And because there's such a lack of understanding around it, people resort to making fun of it, and that's not okay. A lot of times it's not actually name calling or making fun of someone, although that is it some of the time. A lot of times it's more indirect things, like making an offensive joke or saying something that kind of indirectly makes fun of those kinds of people.
For example, here is a representation of what bullying may look like. Try to find out who the bully is.
Oh my god. Oh my god, what a loser. Oh my god. I'm gonna put this everywhere. Oh my god. Gay!
Yeah, she's such a bully. Yeah.
The real bully is everyone. Our teacher, Mrs. Ortiz, knows what bullying is truly coming down to.
I think we should all just be very accepted of who everyone else is, and we should be taught character education and make sure that we feel, we let everyone know that they are accepted and loved.
Character education, when you think about it, it makes total sense. These people who are identified as bullies are not often taught character education at a young age, which will result in future bullying. We sat down with Principal Mr. McNeil, and he explains the after effects of bullying, but not only for the victim, but also for the bully.
Students in school that may be the victim of bullying certainly may be school avoidant, that they might not want to come to school, their grades might drop over time, there may be depression, and those are all significant concerns. What I found is those people that are the victims of bullying over time develop ways to assert themselves better, become more resilient, and over time overcome these obstacles and become much more confident. What I'm also concerned about is not only the victim of bullying, but also the student that may be the aggressor. And those that are identified as bullies in middle school, come their 20s, maybe their mid-20s, oftentimes are involved in drugs, alcohol. They have run-ins with the police as it relates to crime, theft, vandalism. So those students I'm also just as concerned about as well. So this type of behavior has an impact on the culture, not only on the victim, but also the person that is perceived as the aggressor and the bully.
Yes, many victims of bullying are proven to end up with positive effects, but others may not. As said earlier, bullying can drive someone to hurt themselves. At least 14% of high schoolers have thought about suicide, and 7% have attempted it. It's time we end this. Here's a way to help. If you see someone being bullied, go get help. Tell someone. Don't be afraid of what will happen if somebody finds out it was you who ratted them out. When you know someone is being bullied, you can tell a principal that you don't want people finding out it was you who snitched. Here's usually what will happen when you take action.
When we receive this information, we're going to defer and look to the person that's having the problem to be part of the solution. At times, they might want to sit down with that other student and have a conversation with maybe the counselor or Mr. Helmuth present. At times, they might not want anything to do with that other student and would not want to be in the same room, and that would only make it worse. So when addressing these situations, we want to look to the person that's having the problem to be part of the solution. If they say that they'd rather just kind of let it be for now and that we'll kind of just keep an eye on the situation, we can do that. If we want to do something that's a little bit more hands-on and intervening, we can certainly do that, as far as talking to that student that may be the aggressor, talking to all the parents involved, and at times maybe even having a meeting here in the school with the parents of that child. So there's a number of different steps that we can take, but each situation is going to be case by case. And if anything, our adult intervention, the goal is to make the situation better and not worse, and that's why we would defer to the person that has the problem.
Here are a few last key quotes from our interviewees on bullying.
I think there's, a lot of the experiences that I've had in the school with bullying have been people who don't really understand it. People like, isn't, bisexual just meaning you're confused? Isn't that doesn't that mean if you're bi, doesn't that mean you have a crush on me? That's gross, that's weird. And it's a lot of people just not understanding. On the internet, I know, which you mentioned before, there's a lot of negativity on the internet. There's a lot of people who think they're right who aren't, and that makes them very not nice people to argue with, and they say really horrible things. And I have had some experiences where people have said, bad things to me about, being LGBT or, the way I look or whatever, and, it's a big problem. I know that a lot of times it widens the social divide between, what's acceptable and what's not. They get made fun of for their sexual orientation or, whatever, and it makes them feel like they're less, and it's a horrible impact on, how a child grows up.
That's why the Matthew Shepard Act was passed back in 2009, making crimes against people's sexual orientation, their gender, a hate crime where we need to start with parents, we need to start with teachers, we need to make sure that all children are loved and they realize that whatever bullying they're experiencing, it's only a temporary situation. And although it may be hard to really think that things will get better, and there are plenty of people out there that will accept you for who you are, and you really should focus on those people and not the people that, want to ruin your life, because we all have different experiences and we all have our own struggles, whether it be as a child in middle school or even, an adult. So we just should learn how to get along, I think.
So the other night I was reading Christmas books to my kids, and we were reading Rudolph. And the first couple pages, poor little Rudolph, I realized, really is bullied. They don't let him play in any reindeer games, and the poor little guy has to leave, and just because he has a red nose. And really, that's bullying. And even in our classic Christmas stories, there's bullying going on. So it's so common. It's such a huge issue. And I think so. If anybody is ever being bullied, you should know that you're not the only one. And there's lots of help. You should talk to a teacher, a guidance counselor, a parent, and even just talking about it will probably make you feel better, and then they can help you.
Remember to always help a victim of bullying. You could end up saving a life.